Welcome back to another episode of ApexThis.Podcast, a chronicle of my journey to start a publishing side business. This will be a behind-the-scenes look at what I'm doing to make that happen. I'll share tips and best practices that I learned along the way, tips that you can use to start your very own indie publishing journey and share your voice with the world. Coming up, an update on Apex This and the future. Are there any podcast user groups in Austin? Nothing on Facebook or Meetup. Wait, what's this? 2015. Why aren't there any active user groups? What's the deal? Maybe I should start one. Yeah, I'll start a podcast user group. Those words were spoken into my recorder in December 2016 and released to the world January 2017. A little over 3 years later, I'm here to announce that I have stepped away from the meetup I started. And here's why. As you can tell, we are in a global pandemic and still suffering it here in the US. There are important protests happening demanding change. Millions have been laid off from work, and many may be put out of their homes due to the overwhelming lack of support for workers and small businesses. But we are not a political podcast. The point is, this has called to my attention and brought forth some thoughts I've been suppressing. If you've been listening to this sparsely updated podcast, you can derive a theme, a lack of focus, and you will be right. Despite my want to focus on Apex This and my writing, I've never been able to truly do so, and that is because I started too much too soon. When I decided to focus on writing, I decided to also start a meetup. And when the meetup grew with real life people, I gave focus to that. Eventually, podcast episodes would fall out, videos and writing would die off, and I would focus on planning meetups, talks, one-on-ones, etc. More and more, it was removing me from my focus, a focus that was lost when I started the meetup. With COVID, my anxiety increased and I started to really rethink my projects and what I wanted out of life. 2019 saw a big change in how I worked, given that I was coming out of a burnout. I prioritized more self-care days and shrank my work hours so that I wasn't running 100% every day. The workload didn't go away and instead increased. I reread Atomic Habits by James Clear. I read Getting Things Done by David Allen, as well as many other productivity books, and I changed from focusing on goals to focusing on process. While I had a goal to write and many writing projects, my process in writing was non-existent. I asked myself, if I were to write more, what would I need to leave behind? With that question in mind, I came across a blog from Julian Shapiro, founder of the startup Demand Curve, and a writer. He has several guides and blog pieces that he wrote, and one was entitled, What to Work On. In this, he broke down his analysis of finding out what interests or excites him and what he values from his projects. In his writing, this particular line stood out to me. Determine which path you be more regretful not having pursued by the time you're 80 and are reflecting on your life choices. And so I asked myself a few questions. What would I regret not pursuing when I'm 80? Writing and publishing? What am I doing to not have this regret? Nothing. If I were to focus on writing and publishing, would I have time for anything else? Not really. Would that be bad? Nope. All right then. With stepping away from Austin Podcasters, I spent the month of May ramping down on its tasks, giving a talk, relaxing and planning. Hey, I even wrote a 6,700 word short story. And that was the first creative project I've completed or creative writing project I've completed in over a year. Mind you, the first draft of Project Dollar I finished in 2018, and then I started the rewrite of that project. So it's been kind of a writing dry spell. And now I'm writing Project Dollar for Camp NaNoWriMo. I've never participated in Camp NaNoWriMo or a NaNoWriMo event. So what does this mean? I have been transported back to 2017, back to that excitement of finally declaring myself a writer and back to that lust to write. And in doing so, I've been looking at my plans and revising them to meet my revised focus. As I stated earlier, I am now more interested in the process than I am the goal. I am more interested in writing, and the byproduct of that is publishing said stories, creating podcasts, and more. Granted, I am 3 years behind, but it's never too late to start. Thanks for sticking with me as I've attempted to juggle multiple responsibilities. With no longer running Austin Podcasters, I freed up over 180 hours per year. According to my time tracking data, I wonder what I can do with that time. As you've noticed, we skipped the corporate meeting episode that was slated pre-COVID. But in the next episode, we will cover Q3 focus and continue with monthly updates and other supplemental topics regarding writing, publishing, and productivity. Though it would be productivity and how I'm applying to my writing, but if you want to follow me personally, I do also co-host a productivity podcast with a friend of mine called The Productivity Lab. So be sure to check that out. We talk about an experiment with varying productivity methods, read and review books on productivity as well. I'm excited for the future, and I know that I just have to do the work. And I've been honest with myself about where I was lacking, and I removed many of those distractions. Not that there were distractions. I love Austin Podcasters. I love the community, but I was on the wrong train. Now I'm back on the right one, and I want to get it moving again. And I'm so excited what I've been planning and slating. So be sure to be on the lookout for that next episode, and I'll cover my Q3 focus. I'm also on YouTube, so be sure to check that out. Just head over to ApexThis.com/YouTube, and you'll see me posting videos about planning, productivity, and writing. I'm just getting started. I'm getting in the groove of things, and I've recorded some content and editing it as we speak. If you're new, welcome. I know I'm many minutes late into saying that, but if you want to continue to follow, just follow on Twitter at ApexThis, on Instagram at ApexThis, and you'll get some behind the scenes stories and pics of what I'm doing when I'm writing and everything else of that nature. So until next time, stay safe.